Update only pushed for those running a feature update version that is nearing end of service, or it can be paused for up to 35 days. 243, 244, in November 2021, following the launch of version 21H2. Microsoft made a commitment to deliver feature updates for October or November. 245. Thus, Microsoft rebranded the semi-annual channel to the General Availability Channel. 246, 247. Feature updates prior to version 1909 were distributed solely as an in-place upgrade installation, requiring the download of a complete operating system package, approximately 3.5 GB in size for 64-bit systems. Unlike previous builds, version 1909 was designed primarily as an update roll-up version of 1903, which focused primarily on minor feature additions and enhancements. For upgrades to 1909 from 1903, a new delivery method was used where its changes were delivered as part of the monthly cumulative update, but were left in a dormant state until the 1909 update enablement patch is installed. The full upgrade process was still used for those using builds prior to 1903. 248, 249. Features in development. In May 2017, Microsoft unveiled Fluent Design System, previously codenamed Project Neo, a revamp of Microsoft Design Language 2 that will include guidelines for the designs and interactions used within software designed for all Windows 10 devices and platforms. The new design language will include the more prominent use of motion, depth, and translucency effects. Microsoft stated that the implementation of this design language would be performed over time, and it had already started to implement elements of it in Creators Update and Fall Creators Update. 250, on the 7th of December, 2016, Microsoft announced that, as part of a partnership with Qualcomm, it planned to introduce support for running Win32 software on ARM architecture with a 32-bit x86 processor emulator, in 2017. Terry Myerson stated that this move would enable the production of Qualcomm Snapdragon-based Windows devices with cellular connectivity and improved power efficiency over Intel-compatible devices, and still capable of running the majority of existing Windows software, unlike the previous Windows RT, which was restricted to Windows Store apps. Microsoft is initially targeting this project towards laptops. 69. Microsoft launched the branding Always Connected PCs in December 2017 to market Windows 10 devices with cellular connectivity, which included two ARM-based 2-in-1 laptops from Asus and HP featuring the Snapdragon 835 system on chip, and the announcement of a partnership between AMD and Qualcomm to integrate its Snapdragon X 16GB LTE modem with AMD's Ryzen mobile platform. 251, 252. In August 2019, Microsoft began testing changes to its handling of the user interface on convertible devices, downplaying the existing tablet mode option in favor of presenting the normal desktop with optimizations for touch when a keyboard is not present, such as increasing the space between taskbar buttons and displaying the virtual keyboard when text fields are selected. 253. In April 2021, the ability to run Linux applications using a graphical user interface, such as Audacity, directly in Windows, was introduced as a preview. 254. This feature would later be included as part of the updated Windows subsystem for Linux 2 for Windows 11 only. System requirements. Hardware requirements for Windows 10, 181. 255. Component minimum recommended processor 1 GHz clock rate. IA32 or x86-64 architecture with support for PAE, NX and SSE2 x86-64 CPUs must also support CMPX CHG16B, PRIFGW and LAHF/SAF instructions. Memory, RAM, IA32 edition, 1 GB x86-64 edition, 2 GB 4, graphics card DirectX 9 graphics device. WDDM 1.0 or higher driver, WDDM 1.3 or higher driver, display 800-600 pixels, input device, keyboard and mouse, multi-touch display, storage space 32 GB. The basic hardware requirements to install Windows 10 were initially the same as those for Windows 8 and Windows 8.1, and only slightly higher than for Windows 7 and Windows Vista. As of the May 2019 update, the minimum disk space requirement has been increased to 32 GB. In addition, on new installations, Windows permanently reserves up to 7 GB of disk space in order to ensure proper installation of future feature updates. 256, 257. The 64-bit variants require a CPU that supports certain instructions. 258. Devices with low storage capacity must provide a USB flash drive or SD card with sufficient storage for temporary files during upgrades. 259. Some pre-built devices may be described as certified by Microsoft. Certified tablets must include power, volume up, and volume down keys. Win and rotation lock keys are no longer required. 260. As with Windows 8, all certified devices must ship with UEFI Secure Boot enabled by default. Unlike Windows 8, OEMs are no longer required to make Secure Boot settings user configurable, meaning that devices may optionally be locked to run only Microsoft-signed operating systems. 261. A supported infrared illuminated camera is required for Windows Hello Face authentication, and a supported fingerprint reader is required for Windows Hello Fingerprint authentication. 181. Device Guard requires a UEFI system with no third-party certificates loaded, and CPU virtualization extensions, including SLAT and IOMU, enabled in firmware. Beginning with Intel Kaby Lake and AMD Bristol Ridge, Windows 10 is the only version of Windows that Microsoft will officially support on newer CPU microarchitectures. 262, 263. Terry Myerson stated that Microsoft did not want to make further investments in optimizing older versions of Windows and associated software for newer generations of processors. 264, 265. These policies were criticized by the media, who especially noted that Microsoft was refusing to support newer hardware, particularly Intel's Skylake CPUs, which was also originally targeted by the new policy with a premature end of support that was ultimately retracted. 266, 267. On Windows 8.1, a version of Windows that was still in mainstream support until January 2018. 268, 269. In addition, an enthusiast-created modification was released that disabled the check and allowed Windows 8.1 and earlier to continue to work on the platform. 270. Windows 10 version 1703 and later do not support Intel Clover Trail system on chips, per Microsoft's stated policy of only providing updates for devices during their OEM support period. 218, 271. Additional requirements for optional functionality. 181. Feature requirements: biometric authentication, fingerprint reader, BitLocker, trusted platform module, TPM 1.2 or 2.0, a dedicated USB flash drive, or a password AVICI encryption, trusted platform module, TPM 2.0, and instant second level address translation, SLAT, Miracast Wi-Fi adapter that supports Wi-Fi Direct, DIS 6.30, WDDM 1.3, Ivy Bridge, secure attention hardware equivalent of Control and Alt and Delete or Win and Power Key Sequence, secure boot UEFI. Version 2.3.1 Errata B with Microsoft Windows Certification Authority in its database. A speech recognition microphone, Windows Hello illuminated infrared camera. Starting with Windows 10 version 2004, Microsoft will require new OEM devices to 64-bit processors, and will therefore cease its distribution of x86, 32-bit variants of Windows 10 via OEM channels. The 32-bit variants of Windows 10 will remain available via non-OEM channels, and Microsoft will continue to provide feature and security updates on these devices. 272. This was later followed by Windows 11 dropping 32-bit hardware support altogether, and thus making Windows 10 the final version of Windows to have a 32-bit version. 273. Physical memory limits. The maximum amount of RAM that Windows 10 can support varies depending on the product edition and the processor architecture. All 32-bit editions of Win 10, including Homey and Pro, support up to 4 GB. 274. 64-byte editions of Windows 10 Education and Pro support up to 2 TB. 64-bit editions of Windows 10 Pro for workstations and enterprises support up to 6 TB, while the 64-bit edition of Windows 10 Home is limited to 128 GB. 274. Processor limits. Windows 10 supports up to 2 physical processors. 275. A maximum of 32 cores is supported in 32-bit versions of Windows 8, whereas up to 256 cores are supported in the 64-bit versions. 275. Reception. Windows 10 received generally positive reviews, with most reviewers considering it superior to its predecessor Windows 8. 276. 277. 278. CNN Business praised every aspects of Windows 10. 279. TechRadar felt that it could be the new Windows 7, citing the operating system's more familiar user interface, improvements to bundled apps, performance improvements, a rock-solid search system, and the Settings app being more full-featured than its equivalents on 8 and 8.1. The Edge browser was praised for its performance, although it was not in a feature-complete state at launch. While considering them a great idea in principle, concerns are shown for Microsoft's focus on the universal app ecosystem. It's by no means certain that developers are going to flock to Windows 10 from iOS and Android simply because they can convert their apps easily. It may well become a no-brainer for them, but at the moment a conscious decision is still required. 280. Engadget was similarly positive, noting that the upgrade process was painless and that Windows 10's user interface had balanced aspects of Windows 8 with those of previous versions with a more mature aesthetic. Cortana's always-on voice detection was considered to be its true strength, also citing its query capabilities and personalization features, but noting that it was not as preemptive as Google Now. Windows 10's stock applications were praised for being improved over their Windows 8 counterparts, and for supporting windowed modes. The Xbox app was also praised for its Xbox One streaming functionality, although recommending its use over a wired network because of inconsistent quality over Wi-Fi. In conclusion, it was argued that Windows 10 delivers the most refined desktop experience ever from Microsoft, and yet it's so much more than that. It's also a decent tablet OS, and it's ready for a world filled with hybrid devices. And, barring another baffling screw-up, it looks like a significant step forward for mobile. Heck, it makes the Xbox One a more useful machine. 281. On the other hand, Ars Technica panned the new tablet mode interface for removing the charms and app switching, making the start button harder to use by requiring users to reach for the button on the bottom left rather than at the center of the screen when swiping with a thumb, and for making application switching less instantaneous through the use of Task View. Microsoft Edge was praised for being tremendously promising, and a much better browser than Internet Explorer ever was, but criticized it for its lack of functionality on launch. In conclusion, contrasting Windows 8 as being a reliable platform albeit consisting of unfinished concepts, Windows 10 was considered the best Windows yet, and was praised for having a better overall concept in its ability to be comfortable and effective across a wide array of form factors, but that it was buggier than previous versions of Windows were on launch. 282. Extreme Tech felt that Windows 10 restricted the choices of users, citing its more opaque setting menus, forcing users to give up bandwidth for the peer-to-peer distribution of updates, and for taking away user control of specific functions, such as updates.
Yes, I need a break because we have recorded like 2 hours. The video splits in 2 minutes, but it's 3:40. It's 4 p.m. So I will take a look up to page 15. I will this 6-part video, so that's 24 gigabytes. I have to upload, but now my internet connection is much faster than a few years ago. But the video splits in 2 minutes. So this old computers, they can run Windows 10 all on this LGA 775 slots, like the Pentium 4, Prescott, Pentium D, Pentium Dual Core, Core 2 Dual, Quad-Core, all these kind of Intel CPUs can run Windows 10. So I have to play with that later. But I'm going to make some soup later. But I will eat that bread in a few minutes in next video. Then I will cook some hot soup tonight. But we have 1 minute left. I need to go to bathroom. So I will charge the camcorder some hours and maybe try to finish this tonight. But I need a break now because it's 2 hours. So I will buy more old computers in the future, but I have this debt, $1,000 every month, and I have a low pension, and my electricity bill have gone up 130%, and we have this high inflation, so I need to have a saving at least like $2,000 or $3,000 in my bank. I need to have a saving for my future electricity bills and my payments to my debts. But now we are out of power. No, video will split, so I will stop the video and I will charge the camcorder.